You are now listening to KRAN's podcast, Stories Without Limits. Thank you for tuning in. Hello and welcome to KRAN's podcast, Stories Without Limits, the podcast where we amplify stories of resilience, community and change. I'm your host, Rishan, one of KRAN Media Ambassador, and I'm incredibly honored to personally and from aspect of KRAN as well, to have a very special guest joining us, Lord Aftabs. Thank you so much. As we all know, Lord Aftabs is a famous politician, human rights advocate, and inspiring voice of refugees' rights in the UK. His own journey as a child refugee of the kinder transport during the Second World War has shaped his lifelong commitment to helping others. Lord, thank you so much for having us here, and thank you for joining our podcast as well, and especially to be our first visitor to welcoming us in your Westminster office. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, and thank you for asking me to take part in this. I'm delighted to have been associated with and to support the fantastic work that KRAN has been doing over the years. So it's part of a long-term relationship I have with KRAN, about which I'm very happy.
Thank you so much. I can't stop saying that I'm really honored to have you here, with us, especially. You are my role model. Honestly, I've been trying to so much time to have this face-to-face meeting, and your support as well to KRAN is really incredible. Just to start with the questions, I would like, obviously, everyone knows Lord Aftabs, but for our young people to have a bit of a story from you, can you tell us your story and reflecting on your experience as a refugee? What are the most valuable life lessons you have learned, and how this shaped you basically?
That's quite a big question.
I know.
Well, let me start this way.
Yeah.
I was born in Prague, in what was then Czechoslovakia,
sure.
And everything was fine. My father was Jewish, my mother wasn't, and everything was fine until Hitler and the Nazis started expanding out of Germany. Well, it was awful for the Germans, expanding out of Germany. And my father said to his cousins, if the Nazis come to Prague, he's leaving. And tragically, his cousin, my uncle and aunt, they said they'll take a chance. And then in 1942, the Gestapo came to take them to Auschwitz. So my father escaped immediately. My mother tried to get permission to leave, but was refused. In fact, they threw her down the stairs and said, permission refused. So she got me on a kinder transport. And it was. I remember still seeing all the parents. The kinder transport were organized several trains from Prague, also from other countries like Germany and Austria. In the case of the Prague ones, they were organized by a wonderful man called Nicky Winton.
Sure.
And he had help, of course. And I still remember seeing my mother and other anxious parents saying goodbye on the platform. Before that, when the Germans occupied Prague, I was 6 years old, my first year at primary school. I'd had a school book, and inside the school book was a picture of the Czech president, President Beneš. And when the Germans occupied Prague, we had to tear that out and stick in a picture of Hitler. Somehow that stuck in my memory. My school book torn, the president's picture torn, and this picture of Hitler in its place. And there were German soldiers everywhere. So my mother got me on the train, and off we went. I didn't know anybody. I was one of the youngest. There were nearly 200 of us. We crossed old Germany, hard wooden seats, but never mind, you don't mind that as a 6-year-old.
Yeah.
And we got to the Dutch border, and the older ones cheered because we were then out of reach of the Nazis. I didn't understand all that. I just knew it was significant, but didn't know why. In fact, I was looking out for windmills and wooden shoes, which is all I knew of Holland. But I couldn't see any, it was dark. Anyway, the train went to the Hook of Holland, and then to Harwich, the night boat, and then on to Liverpool Street.
Sure. So for this, to listen to your story, I've read a lot, many times in the news, or is it the film that we watched it last year as well. It's similar. There's many young people who have come this similar journey. I myself had to leave, obviously, my family, and then come to the UK. But then it's living in the UK. I always say that one journey to come to the UK, but living as well in the UK is another journey as well. So, what do you think the biggest misconception about refugees and how we challenge those narratives? And
Well, let me stop you there a minute.
Sure.
Look, I had a very easy journey.
Yeah.
It was on a train. It may have been traumatic. I may not have understood. I was young. I was probably a bit frightened. But for you, you had a much more frightening journey.
Absolutely.
People who came, and I have to remember that.
Yeah.
That your journey was terrible, it was long, and it was dangerous.
Indeed.
Admittedly, if I hadn't escaped from Prague, I might not have survived the Holocaust. But nevertheless, the journey was fairly straightforward.
Exactly.
So I want to, make that clear.
Absolutely.
I spoke Czech and German when I arrived in London. I had about 2 words of English. So of course I had to start learning English. But for a 6-year-old, that's not so difficult. When you're 16, it's a bit harder, and the older you get, the more difficult it is.
Absolutely.
But to survive in a school playground, you have to learn English.
Indeed.
And I did that. Okay.
Yeah.
And then what happened was, as soon after the war, just before the war started, my mother did escape, luckily, and she arrived in London the day before the war began, on the 31st of August. And then within a few months, my father died. So there was just my mum and me. And she spoke very little English, so no money, nothing. It was very difficult for her. But we made our way, and she got a job scrubbing floors. We lived in Manchester at the time, and things could have been a lot worse.
Indeed. But what do you think? What of the negative narrative is being presented, obviously, around because a lot of people, they see refugees' story from the television, obviously, and that all of that negative things has been done.
Yeah, well, look, first of all, there was some opposition to children on a kinder transport coming in 1938-39, and about 10,000 came altogether, and Britain was pretty well the only country that took them. And we were made to feel pretty welcome. But since then, it's got worse. I think in the earlier post-war years, there was a willingness to accept people, and then things got much tougher for asylum seekers coming here. We had ministers in the last Conservative government who talked about asylum seekers as invaders. Now, invaders in any country are the enemy. And so I think the situation has got much more difficult. On the other hand, there's been a lot of support from local communities, so we're balancing that off against government ministers. But the problem is, if at the top there are words expressed opposing or challenging or threatening asylum seekers, then I think, and together with some of the popular media, then I think it is very difficult. And local communities have to overcome what political leaders are saying.
Indeed.
And I think if we're going to welcome asylum seekers and refugees and give them a chance, then I think we need better leadership from the top.
Sure.
And we need some sense that people are welcome. People who have a well-founded fear of persecution. Britain can't take everybody in the world, but I think particularly child refugees, I think we have a moral responsibility as a country.
Absolutely. The next question could be similar to what you've just said, but you can expand on this. So the Auschwitz survivors recently asked us to grant guard against hate. Yet in the state we have President Trump is the word. Do you think the word is particularly in the UK becoming more or less tolerant of refugees? If it's less tolerant, what needs to change? I mean, you hit part of it as well, but if you can expand on that aspect.
Well, it's difficult to say how much worse it's now getting. Look, we have wonderful local communities.
Indeed.
Not just in the KRAN area, but elsewhere. Yes. And I think there's some real good support and a willingness to make refugees or asylum seekers feel welcome and to help them lead sensible, good, proper lives and catch up with their education or get jobs if they're allowed to work.
Sure.
So there's that. On the other side, there is a sense in British politics that we're opposed to these people. And, the figures are so wrong. This is a year ago, there were 600,000 net immigration, but of those, 30 to 40,000 were asylum seekers, and some came on boats. But you'd think all the 600,000 were coming on boats.
Absolutely. I tried to explain that, but for others, but that's what's being presented. That's the issue.
Well, it's a distortion of the truth, and also I believe that if people in this country know the background of the people who are fleeing for safety.
Indeed.
What they've gone through, whether it's in the Horn of Africa, whether it's in Syria, Afghanistan, and so on. If they knew that, understood it, then I think they would be more welcoming. Because these are people who are fleeing for their lives, or fleeing from terrible situations. And, you know, there's nothing unworthy about being an economic migrant, but it doesn't give you the human rights protection of the United Nations Geneva Convention if you're an asylum seeker.
Sure.
So you know, we as a country we have to decide how many economic migrants are good to have. I would say there's nothing unworthy about being an economic migrant. Human beings have been economic migrants since the beginning of time. But I think the higher priority should be for asylum seekers, the ones who are actually fleeing for safety and who've had these terrible experiences behind them.
Absolutely.
And the more we explain that to local people, local communities, the better it is. I found talking to schools is particularly rewarding because
we have kids, as well as well.
Kids at school get it. They just get it, you know. Yeah. In fact, there was one occasion when I was talking to school, all I could do was stop them all volunteering to go to Calais and help and support as volunteers. So, you know, the younger people get it better than the older people.
Sure. I mean, we when I used to be youth ambassador, we used to go to school and then give a school talk. And lots of the children, they wrote a letter for us to say thank you for coming, and then they donate their like little toys for us to say that we want to help other like children if there is in the area in Canterbury. So I totally agree with you, and especially in the aspect of telling the story and people if they understand what happened to this person. Because when I was a student nurse, so I used to obviously like interact with my patient and then obviously communicate. The first question they will ask me, where are you from and is your family here? And I had to tell them my story and how I came. And they shocked, like they would say, some of them they say thank you, and some of them they will obviously what they been presented in the media, I will obviously raise awareness about like, no, this is the story and that's that. And you will see like how much like people connected from a real story, that if they understand what's the reason behind it, obviously.
Yeah. Well, I think to understand what's happened and what's happened to people who are coming and fleeing here for safety, to understand that has to be the main challenge for us. In other words, because once there is understanding, then there is a willingness to cooperate, to accept, to help people to settle and to learn English and all the other things they want to do. So there is a real struggle going on for public opinion between us and between the people who are against us.
Indeed, absolutely. And this question is really like could be personal, because for me, one of the things is keep me obviously motivated to talk about our stories and then to make people understand how to help refugees just from listening to their like true stories. And that's one thing. It really motivates me. It really motivates me when I see you and other people like obviously kind of fight for our rights and fight for just to make people understand the story. So for you, what's keep you motivated, and what's continue fighting for refugees' rights, and even when political and social challenges make it really difficult?
Well, I tell you, first of all, it's not just me. I've got the publicity. A lot of other people.
Indeed.
You know, I can't claim credit for all that. But I think there are two real motivations. One is I've been to Calais. I've met refugees in Greece. I've been to Jordan. I've been elsewhere. I even went to Myanmar and watched the Rohingyas some years ago. And I think seeing the people who fled, talking to them, learning more about their background, their experiences and their ideas, and their hopes for the future. That is a very powerful incentive for me to say we've got to go on. And secondly, the people, not just KRAN, but especially KRAN, and other NGOs, Refugee Council, Safe Passage and so on, who work with refugees. And I think their support, their encouragement, their passion for human rights is something that makes me feel, well, the least I can do in my position is to use it to respond as well as I can. So those are two things that I think keep me going.
Thank you so much. Thank you really for sharing that. You mentioned some of the organizations that we also collaborated with them, like Safe Passage and Hummingbird. There is obviously Refugee Council. And particularly for you as a patron of KRAN, what's inspired you to support KRAN? And what's the impact do you think KRAN has been a life of refugees?
Well, over the years, I've met a lot of people
Yes.
from KRAN. They go in touch with me. I go in touch with them. I've learnt about the work you're doing, about the campaigning, about the support. That you are a voice of human rights and sanity in a world where there aren't that many such voices. And so it's very inspiring for me to meet people like you and others who work with KRAN. And I think there's a lot of good work going on. And as I say, it's very encouraging that despite what the media say, despite what some politicians in the last government certainly said, it's very encouraging that you are there. You haven't given up. You're continuing, and of course you're on the front line. Indeed. because you a lot of boats arrive, and I hope you're making sense of this very awful situation by what you say and what you do.
Yes.
So it's partly you're inspirational, you speak out and you do the work.
Thank you so much. And could be a similar question, but what has been the most rewarding part of your involvement with KRAN?
Well, I think it's knowing that I'm helping in a small way, helping an organization that is really very important in Kent. Very important. I don't know how much wider beyond Kent.
Yes, it's mainly like Canterbury and Folkestone, but we do trying to cover as much as.
Yeah, so it's very inspiring to that you are in an area where public opinion is sometimes difficult, and I think it's very inspiring that you're there, you're doing it, and you haven't been deterred by the voices that speak out against you. Absolutely. And I think you've shown courage.
Thank you.
I think people who show courage and compassion are two pretty good qualities.
Thank you so much. What advice would you give to a young person who has recently arrived in the UK as refugees or asylum seeker?
Well, first of all,
yes.
I'd certainly give them advice to learn English.
Even to me, believe me, I would. This is for me. It would take me like really deep into my heart. Like,
well, I think and I met quite a few of them,
sure.
And indeed, when I meet people and they learn about how I came as an unaccompanied child refugee, there's a sort of a bond between us, which is very encouraging because we can talk quite easily. What I would say is learn English, and of course. School education, very important. You've probably missed out a lot of your education through the background, the journeys and so on. So I think it's important you do your best to catch up. And then I would say this. When I was sort of starting off, I thought to myself, I can't really be too ambitious because I'm a refugee. English wasn't my first or second language. What do I do? And I held back. And my advice is, if you're ambitious, go for it. You may not succeed, but if there's something you want to do, try and do it. Because if you don't succeed, try again.
Sure.
But if you do succeed, then you've done something important, and you're not wasting time wondering whether you're up to it. So if you lack self-confidence, overcome that and go for it. I lacked self-confidence, and I hesitated a long time before I did things I wanted to do, and that was a mistake. And I learned from that, and I would advise any young person that go for it. If you have ambitions, seize them and go for it and do it.
Indeed. That's one of the things as well. Like, trying to encourage our young people to have their GCSE level 1, level 2 maths and English, because before, to move forward, things get really hard for them. Again, it's in the aspect of that there is a systematic or the government, if you don't have your status, if you don't have this, and then the wider image obviously kind of be a barrier for our young people. So from the political aspect is where we are in terms of the cross-party MPs safe and legal routes. Well,
look, we keep arguing.
Sure.
We've got a new government. We're having to see whether they'll do the things we'd like them to do. I'm more sympathetic to this government because I think Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, has in the past been very supportive of child refugees. Yes, I did quote
one of her last 2 years, I believe so, when she said safe route needed more.
Yeah. So and the reason we argue for safe and legal routes is because we believe that the people traffickers are awful, and they're endangering a lot of people, and they're endangering lives, and people drown terribly in the Channel, as they do in the Mediterranean and elsewhere. And I think the reason we argue for safe and legal routes is that, I repeat, we can't take everybody, but where people have a well-founded fear of persecution in their country, particularly if they're children, then I think we have a responsibility. And a safe and legal route is a much better way of getting to Britain. And I believe that if there were safe and legal routes, the traffickers wouldn't do so much business. Sure. Mightn't stop them entirely, but they would do much less business. And that's, after all, what we want, people to come safely rather than in these dangerous boats.
Absolutely. We do fight even... I wrote a blog around like we need humanitarian visas to allow safe and legal route. And this is one of the things we keep pushing on and on and on to happen, because a lot of people, when they hear illegal, it sounds like really kind of criminal, like those people, they're not like in danger. We want to change that kind of aspect and then more like to have like legal route for children, as you said.
Although I'm careful because I don't like to say people are coming here legally, because that's not true for asylum seekers. The asylum seekers have the right to flee to safety.
Indeed.
And I think there are people who, are acting on the best information they have,
sure.
And they're frightened. And when I was in Calais, and I've been in Calais several times, and some of these people in Sudanese said, we don't have money to pay the traffickers. All we can hope is that a trafficker will ask us to steer the boat. And yet if they do steer the boat and they're caught, then that's a criminal offence. And I think we've got that wrong as well,
sure.
Because what we're doing is making victims into criminals. So we've got to be very, very careful. And they said that with all sincerity. Now, some of them who do arrive in Calais, they do have money, but some don't. And it's a tough dilemma for them to be in.
Sure, and that's the thing that the public need to understand. Like it's not something that an option for someone to be in that position or someone to come like. As you said, like they should flee, like to come to the UK or to any other country, like safely, rather to go through all of these situations.
Yeah, I was in Jordan some time ago, and a big refugee camp called Zaatari. And it was better than most because Calais is just terrible. They're sleeping.
I've been there.
Sleeping under the trees and tarpaulins on. But Zaatari actually has prefab buildings. It has electricity, sanitation, water and all that. Sure. So it's better physically. And I was talking to a young Syrian boy, about 16, and I said, what's your situation? And he said, well, I've finished my education in the camp. That's good.
Okay.
Yeah. And he said, I've tried to get a job in the camp. I can't. I've tried to get a job outside the camp and I can't. What's my future? And it's not safe for me to go back to Syria. And I felt through that conversation and others that human beings can put up with terrible situations if there is some hope for them.
Absolutely.
And if there's hope, they can persevere and try and move forward. And I think our job in this country, and KRAN's job, is to offer people hope. Hope is such an important thing because it enables people to pick up the bits and pieces of their lives and catch up on whatever they've missed.
Thank you so much. So a message for our listeners, what you want, if they want to support refugees, whether through activism, whether volunteering or policy change, what are the most impactful ways do you think that they can help with?
Well, I think obviously to support organizations like KRAN, because you're the professionals.
Thank you.
I think to support organizations like KRAN, to have them understand that a lot of the support for new arrivals, asylum seekers, refugees, can be most effectively done in a local community. So it means cooperation with local organizations, means cooperation if the council is sympathetic, and generally to have a network, and then to involve particularly asylum-seeking children in as many local activities as possible to give them a chance to take part, to participate, whether it's sport or whatever else, and to be as supportive as possible, but not to patronize them. There's also a sense of, well, if you're a asylum seeker, you must have certain problems. They may or may not have. I think we've got to let asylum seekers actually indicate, how they can best feel happy in participating. I'll tell you a story. Just before the pandemic, Chelsea and Fulham football clubs, they had an open day on Fulham football ground for football training for refugees. Now, it was headed by Guy Lineker, great guy, Guy Lineker, and he's really spoken out for refugees. And we had the training, and I thought to myself, this is terrific. Now, it was only boys. I should have argued there should be girls, but you can't win every argument all the time. And they had training. And when I was their age, I'd have given anything to have football training with somebody like Guy Lineker. So I was very positive. Then a week later, in a local park, there was just a football match with newly arrived refugee boys and girls, I think, and just playing football with local kids. And that was good as well. So I think the thing is to give new arrivals a chance to be as normal as possible, to respect their differences, to respect their culture, traditions, religion, and so on.
Absolutely.
But also to give them a chance to get as involved as possible in the things that are going on, so they feel part of our local community.
Indeed. So small things matters as well. Like, it doesn't have to be like big things, but again, it's just to have the sense of belonging.
Yeah.
It's beyond everything. It doesn't, and sometimes I personally feel that I need to act in a certain way because everyone will expect for me to be a certain way. And a lot of young people that we see in KRAN who comes in, they starting their new life, obviously, but we feel like really kind of beyond proud for them just to show up, like in the office, and for them to just to be there. That's what we can ask more than that.
Absolutely. And we shouldn't impose things upon them as well. They have to make their own way, but we have to make sure doors are open and they're given opportunities.
Sure.
And I've seen some good work done up and down the country by local organisations. Not just KRAN, but including KRAN.
Indeed.
And that's always very encouraging,
Indeed.
that they make people feel welcome.
Absolutely. And for me, that's my foster family and the people around me, and this obviously the society, the community that I have along is push me to be like, kind of support me, like to be standing now, like to have obviously this meeting, or to be in other way, like obviously. I would want to say, like, really thank you so much, Lord Taps. And before we wrap up, is there the thoughts or message that you would like to leave for our listeners, and particularly for our young peoples as well, KRAN's young peoples?
Well, I would like to say to the young people who have arrived, I had a good start in this country when I came.
Sure.
And I would like to feel that this country will give you the same opportunities today as I had many years ago when I came as a 6-year-old. I do understand the difficulties, the confusion of being in a different country. But I would like to say that in cooperation with KRAN, I hope you can achieve or begin to achieve some of the things that are important to you, despite the enormous difficulties you've had. And I say our job is to give you hope that you can achieve something worthwhile in this country.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate for that. I mean, this meeting it will be really taking long with me, honestly. Thank you so much for being here. Well, thank you so much.
But we agree on everything.
Yes, thank you so much. It has been really absolutely privileged speaking with you today, and truly appreciate your time and having us here, obviously, and just it's a lifetime moment for me, honestly. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you for saying that. And can I just say,
yes.
I appreciate enormously the work that KRAN have been doing, and are going to go on doing it. I appreciate your interest in this today. It's a privilege for me to be associated with KRAN in the work that you do, because you are going to make the lives of young people better than they would otherwise be. That's a pretty tough aim, and it's a very great achievement.
Thank you so much. Thank you for all the work that you do for us. I mean, to be honest, like it's a privilege, I would say that. So thank you, and I'm really honored. To our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in into Stories Without Limits. If you would like to learn more about KRAN's work and how you can get involved, visit our website www.kran.org.uk. Until next time, stay safe and stay connected. Thank you.
Thank you.